I think it's utterly important as a DC live action movie and TV show content creator that I speak for all the fans, but not speak for them, but echo some of their views and be very balanced, right? And not be disrespectful to any side of the DC fan base. I'm here to represent all your feelings and how you feel about stuff, but it's utterly important to me that I give my views. I'm not a fucking robot. I'm not just going to sit here and geek out and shill about shit. So it's important to me to echo the side of the Snyderverse fan base. That's important. But also it's important for me, to echo the sentiments of the Gunn fan base. Now today I want an open, transparent discussion from the general audience's point of view, but not just them. Like die-hard DC Comics fans, fans of, the Bruce Timm animated universe, all of them. I want to talk about the DCU, the plan, Man of Tomorrow, and beyond, in a transparent way where I'm not spitting fire. Sometimes I'll spit fire at Gunn if I don't agree with him, right? But today, I want to have a balanced situation. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends, wives, and especially your boyfriends and your husbands. A very warm welcome to Friday, I nearly forgot the date again. Very warm welcome to Friday's edition of the DCU Daily. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. On Snapchat, BMouth60, and on TikTok, Mad Mickey's World, because I'm a really, really nice nutter. So I'm nice, but I'm a nutter. That's good, right? We can't all be sane and normal and boring. Anyway, let's get talking. Let's have a balanced discussion about James Gunn's DCU plan, especially talk about Man of Tomorrow, because I think what most people are talking about in this film is utter nonsense. I don't think you understand how big, what an extravaganza this movie's going to be. That doesn't mean I suddenly love James Gunn's Superman, because I don't. I think there's things in there that James Gunn does really well, and there's other things in that film he doesn't do well at all. I said when I responded to this film, when I watched the film first of all, which got me a lot of heat, because apparently I shouldn't have been talking about the film when I was, before it was released. Apparently a bunch of gun bros were going to get me sued. I'm still fucking waiting. You're going to have to fucking catch me first. But anyway, I made the point. I said the worst thing about the Superman movie was Gunn's interpretation of Superman. Actually, a lot of the other characters, most of the other characters in the movie were done quite well, if I'm being honest, but it's a film called Superman. You've got to get Superman right, and I don't feel James got Superman totally right. But also when I look at the entire plan, now we were heading for something called Gods and Monsters, which it seems like he's diverting away from. And that's because Superman has made, for them, good money. It's the most successful comic book movie of the year, right? It doubled the box office of the MCU movies, right? And let's not get it twisted, did really well domestically, did terribly internationally, but then Man of Steel did terribly domestically, but brilliant internationally. But Man of Steel made more globally than Superman did. And let's yet again, let's not get it twisted so there's no misunderstandings. Because one thing you've got to understand about me, I'm not here to trigger you. I'm not here to rage bait you. I want a peaceful life. I don't want to be on social media seeing hateful comments about me. That's one of the things why I'm glad I'm not that popular on the internet. I'm not quite sure if I could handle that level of fire. That's why I protect myself on the internet. Because I don't really want to deal with toxicity. It's not the kind of person I really am. I'm actually kind of a nice guy, even if I do say so myself. I'm not perfect. I don't always do and say the right thing and conduct myself in the right way, but I try my best to be empathetic, to be compassionate towards others, and be careful that I don't hurt anyone. And I'm not always successful at any of those things, but I do try my best. That's why I'm doing this video today. I want a balanced video to talk about James Gunn and the DCU. From the Snyder perspective, and from my own, to a point. I'm still highly frustrated how Henry was treated, right? How Snyder was treated, right? How they used his daughter's, death against him. WB, the leadership at the time. All of those histrionics are there. I can't sit here and defend James Gunn's historical tweets. I can't defend the fact that he was at a problematic fancy dress party with a group of friends. I can't defend that. Gunn hasn't even given us any reason to defend any of those things. But here's the thing. Even though I love the Snyder fan base, there's things that they say that I'm not with, I can't agree with. When I'm talking about a man's artistic integrity, when I'm talking about a man's movie in terms of James Gunn, I only want to talk about his movie. But a lot of Snyder fans want to talk about his historical tweets, the bad things that he's done. There's a lot of problematic things we've seen James Gunn do in his past. And I don't really want to go into that. I don't want to connect that with him as a writer-director. Because, as I say, the historical tweets are utterly disgusting. And I can't defend the fancy dress party attendance. But I don't want to connect that with him as a filmmaker. I think he's a good, solid filmmaker. But let's talk about his current DCU plan. The idea to make a Superman film, I thought was a good idea. But I think probably, maybe the idea of launching the DCU with a Superman movie may have been a mistake, considering how hard they find to make and write Superman stories. And as I say, on the most part, in terms of the kind of interpretation of Superman, I didn't like it. But there's some things I like. But this is, that film to me will not live long in the memory, even for the people who absolutely loved it. But it's clear domestically, a lot of the general audience did go and watch that movie and actually quite liked it. The domestic box office, and I know people keep on getting annoyed because the domestic keeps on getting mentioned as a positive, but it is. That's why he's been given carte blanche to do whatever he wants. That's why he's doing Man of Tomorrow. So I think on its own, making a Superman film is a good idea. Then you look at what we're getting, what we got with Peacemaker 2. There's nothing wrong with making a Peacemaker 2. I can't see it. I'm geo-locked. I loved the first Peacemaker. I wish I could see Peacemaker 2. From what I can see, it's a solid, good, okay continuation from Superman, but continuation from Gunn's season 1 of Peacemaker. I liked what he did in the first series. Now, we can see why he wanted Peacemaker 2 to come so quickly after Superman. Maybe it's too much too soon for people. The numbers are not great. And if I hazard a guess, probably Peacemaker 2's viewers are not as high as the first series Peacemaker. But anyway, and I think this is part of the mentality of announcing Man of Tomorrow now. Yesterday, he posted on social media that Peacemaker 2 is a prequel for Man of Tomorrow. It's an obvious thing to say. They can see that the numbers for Peacemaker 2 ain't great, so announcing Man of Tomorrow with some hype behind it may get some viewers. Now, again, I can't see Peacemaker 2, but the latest episode revealed a Pocket Universe version of Rick Flag Jr. Now, Rick Flag in Suicide Squad 2016 and James's Suicide Squad, I love him. He's great. But you see, this is what entertainment and film has become. Member berries, Easter eggs, and cameos. It's easy, it's lazy, but it just garners some excitement and conversation on social media. And I believe that Man of Tomorrow will continue that. I want to talk about Man of Tomorrow a little bit more, a little bit in a moment. But I want to continue to talk about James Gunn's plan. So then you look at next year. I think we are getting Clayface next year, right? I think it's next year. So next year we're getting Clayface, Supergirl, and Lanterns on HBO Max on streaming. Now I believe that a Green Lantern epic movie would have been amazing, and I'm disappointed that's not what we're getting. But we do unfortunately live in the era of streaming, and they have to keep streaming alive. It's part of their fucking business plan. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a Green Lantern streaming show. Would have preferred an epic movie. A Supergirl movie, a great idea. Whether it's good or not, we'll have to wait and see. And doing an R-rated Clayface movie, some people are trying to criticise that. Who wants to watch it? And I've questioned that myself, but I still think it's a good, solid idea. And then in 2027, it's going to be Man of Tomorrow. And of course, we've got the Batman 2 in DC Elseworlds. So I think when you look at Gunn's current plan, at the very least, and I'm coming from a balanced perspective today, remember, I don't think that's a bad plan. As I said earlier, Man of Steel is a far superior film than James Gunn's Superman. I'm not sitting on the fence on that. I'm being absolutely clear. But they clearly are content with the box office it brought in, especially domestically and globally, because they know it could have been worse. So why is this current leadership of WB happy with a movie that made less than Man of Steel when the previous leadership of WB wasn't happy with the money Man of Steel made? I've told you this before, because the people at WB really loved Man of Steel and felt it could have made so much more money, but the big swings like Superman killing Zod and the destruction, which was a WB incentive, not a Snyder one or a Goya one, let's not get that twisted, didn't work out for them. They wanted to make more money because they felt the movie had more potential. In terms of Superman, they knew what it was going to make before they released it. That's why Gunn said my movie doesn't need to make 700, 750, doesn't need to beat Man of Steel. They clearly made a decision that as long as it kind of went over the 600 million global range, they would be content with that. That's clear to me to see. But all the arguments that Snyder fans are putting about, it's a flop. Look, I don't think the movie's made a loss, but I certainly don't think the movie has made a huge profit. There's certainly no question about that. Yeah, sorry, I had to pause because I got something flew in my eye. I don't know if you noticed, but I was struggling for a bit there. Anyway, right, so I certainly think that the DCU and DC Studios are in a stronger position than Marvel Studios and the MCU right now. Half of the audience in terms of the MCU are kind of bored, had enough, not excited anymore, and that's why the movies ain't making as much money. The decisions to go at phase 4 and 5, the underwhelming way, the DEI way, the things that they were doing, have really upset a lot of the audience and kind of got people bored. But worse than that, the MCU phase 4 and 5 started making people generally bored of comic book movies. So Gunn's plan is solid. And let's not get it twisted, the box office for Superman isn't magnificent, isn't great, but it's solid at the very least. And there's an element of DC fans that are very, very excited about the future. There's people so excited about Man of Tomorrow. I'm certainly intrigued at the very least about this movie. And a lot of people have spoken already what they think this movie is going to be. And as I said yesterday, it's not going to be a Superman Lex Luthor Road movie. As fun and as different as that would be, I don't think what we're getting here is clear. We're getting Lex Luthor in a power suit. Awesome to see that in live action, if we do indeed see it in live action. It's clear that Superman and Lex will have to team up. But I don't think this is just about Superman and Lex. Some very interesting people from outside the DCU who have, portrayed characters in DC live action television and film before are liking the news, the posts about Man of Tomorrow, actually pressing like on posts from James Gunn, Brandon Routh, Tyler Hoechlin, who played Superman for the CW, Grant Gustin, the best Flash there's ever been. Let's not get that twisted either. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be involved in it, but it is highly interesting. And it's clear that Gunn may have got them to like those posts. I think we are looking a much bigger movie than Superman. I think this is going to be an extravaganza. Doesn't mean I'm going to like it, but I think it's going to be a huge, multiversal, huge team up. Now, Tyler Hoechlin, who played Superman, said he would like to play Batman in the DCU. It could be that Tyler could play the DCU Batman. I mean, right now, I don't even know what's going on with Brave and the Bold. I don't think they're in a place where they've even made their minds up. But I think there will be some kind of version of Batman in that movie. It could actually be that Robert Pattinson's Batman could still be an Elseworld Batman, but appear in that film. As I say, I think it's going to be a multiversal, multi-dimensional, pocket universe movie. I think this is why he's setting up the pocket universe. That's why he set it up in Superman. That's why he's continuing to tell a pocket universe story in Peacemaker 2. Those characters from the pocket universe will probably be involved. I think will definitely be involved in Man of Tomorrow. Don't be surprised if Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn appears in Peacemaker 2. I think it's pretty obvious that we are going to see Superman turn up in Peacemaker 2. That would be kind of very exciting for fans. And even for me, as someone who hasn't embraced, David Cronenberg's Superman quite yet, and maybe in the next movie, I'll kind of get into him more, we'll see what type of movie Man of Tomorrow actually is. So I believe that Man of Tomorrow is going to be this huge crossover from the pocket universes, from Gunn's DCU. Now the question remains, will there be any DCEU, DC characters or actors involved in this movie? I think there's a little chance of that happening as well. I believe that Man of Tomorrow, as I say, is a huger movie than Superman is. And they certainly seem in a great rush to make this next movie. What you've also got to remember, because a lot of people have critiqued this, why is the turnaround so quickly from Superman to Man of Tomorrow? But don't forget, I think that David Cronenberg's like 30, 31. The years do move on very quickly when you're making movies. So in no time at all, he'll be 35 and, he's not going to get any younger. So because they didn't go for a 24, 25-year-old actor, this is the pressure they're under. They have to make this super saga as quickly as possible before David Cronenberg ages out of the role. So it kind of makes sense. This is not me coping, you know me, but I'm a balanced guy. I'm just trying to explain the situation to you in a balanced, constructive way. Because being balanced and being constructive at times is very, very important to me. This doesn't mean any of this is going to work, that it's going to be successful, but we're talking about the plan that James Gunn has. Now, yes, Man of Tomorrow has to make more than Superman did. No question about that. It can't make less. It can make as much, but it can't make less. There has to be a continuing interest in what Gunn is doing. Now, looking at the Peacemaker 2 numbers and social media engagements, I would think solidly there's an interest in Peacemaker 2, but nothing more than that. Creature Commandos, there wasn't a big interest in that series either. So, Man of Tomorrow has to be his Dark Knight. It has to be a movie that interests more people than the Superman movie did and his other streaming shows. What has to happen now? The more projects he introduces, announces, and releases, the more interest from the public there needs to be. Now, this is what he's hoping to do. But I do believe that Man of Tomorrow is more than just about Superman and Lex Luthor. I think it's a huge movie with many, many DC characters, because as I said earlier, this is where we are today in entertainment. When I was young, I looked up to Hollywood producers, actors, directors, writers, and now I don't. I'm a lot more cynical about the industry. I'm a lot more cynical about the stuff they make because they've given me no reason to believe in them, to hero worship them anymore. That's the problem. But it's very, very sad to me that I no longer look up to Hollywood and the people there and the stuff that they make. But I think coming from a balanced position, I think I am at the moment a little bit hopeful that Man of Tomorrow can be a better film than Superman. I was going to sign off there, but I just remembered something. In the latest episode of Peacemaker 2, which I've said I can't watch, but they did mention Enchantress, who was the villain of Suicide Squad 2016. Again, this is more evidence that Man of Tomorrow could introduce all these characters and even have some DCEU characters. But they've just made Enchantress from Suicide Squad 2016 canon to the DCU.